Well, it's almost 2 o'clock in the morning. Can't wait to just get on the plane, sit down and fall asleep. So next stop is Lusaka. In this video, I'll be sharing my experiences of taking the Canon R5 and RF400mm lens while on safari in Zambia's South Luangwa National Park during its emerald season in April. I'll be testing out the quality of this lens, as well as the eye detection autofocus on the R5 and sharing the results. Could this be the greatest lens ever made? But Doha Airport is huge. I mean, it's taking me a good 10-15 minutes to get to the gate. Find out they've been walking to the wrong gate. Where is C62? You'll probably think of worse places to catch a flight right now. Still plenty of time before the flight. What a fantastic place this is though. Basically copying Singapore. But anyway, very nice though. Welcome to a bright and sunny Lusaka morning. So just gone through customs check and passport control and all that stuff. Now making my way to the domestic terminal, ready for my flight to South Luangwa National Park. First reaction to Lusaka Airport. Very clean, very modern, very efficient. We got through passport control and checks and everything very, very quickly. I thought it was visa on arrival for UK passport holders. There's no visa required anymore, which is really, really good. So got through really quickly. Finally boarding the final flight into Mafue, which is the Pro Flight Zambia from Lusaka to Mafue, and little plane, little sort of small passenger jet, you see behind me, it's pretty cool. And that's going to take us about an hour to get to Mafue from here. So it should be a really nice flight, flying over the wilderness, the African wilderness, and the vast sort of safari national parks and all that sort of stuff. So it should be a really, really fun flight. Landed in Mafue International Airport. Check that out. So we're just going to get through here, domestic arrivals, get through whatever security checks are on, and then I'm being picked up by a representative from the lodge that I'm staying at. Hopefully we're going to be seeing some real leopards in the wild.
Yeah.
Just with Andrew, loading up the car, ready to go to the lodge. Yeah. So what is it, about 45 minutes?
45 minutes.
45 minutes.
How I'll be driving from here to the lodge.
Depends on the driving, 45 minutes to the lodge from here. Pretty good going. And here's our Jeep, look at that. Check this car out, look at these. No doors, no roof. These are like what, supports for the cameras, I think. Is that right?
Yeah.
So you can put camera supports on here. And then we've got some sort of, obviously, guard here from the seats so they don't fall out. But yeah, this is like a proper safari Jeep, this is. No obstructed view or anything like that. No roof to get in the way. No seatbelt required. No door required. Off we go. We've got our man here, Andrew. Wow, Andrew's going to look after us. We don't need health and safety in Zambia. That's for wimps. This is a Toyota Land Cruiser. Now, Toyotas are renowned for their air conditioning. I've got to be honest, this car has the best air conditioning I've ever experienced in a Toyota. Arrived at the tracking trail and there's some baboons here to greet us. So, heading out on the first game drive with Vic, my driver Vic, very experienced guy. He's going to show us all the best parts of South Luangwa. My first reaction to South Luangwa during its emerald season is the abundance of wildlife. The park is absolutely teeming. The rainy season has just ended, so the ground is still very wet underfoot and the grass is quite long in places, but there's still fairly easy game viewing. As we travel deeper into the park, we notice a sense of trepidation amongst the animals around us. We then discover the reason why. A big pride of lions are nearby. 2 of them are mating right on the pathway. The male lion is huge with scars on his face. He's probably had a few battles in his time. We have to wait patiently for the other vehicles around us to move on, so we can get a decent shot. It's a difficult composition for a 400mm fixed lens. The lions are lying down, so there's not much to focus on. I'm trying my best to get something. We back away slightly to give them more space, and then there's a bit of movement. Finally a face appears. Then all of a sudden both lions are up walking towards us. I have the male lion looking straight towards me, but with a fixed 400mm lens, I'm unable to zoom out as the lions move closer. We then decide to move on to find the rest of the pride, hiding in the bushland close by. There's at least 10 cubs scattered around us. I have a clear view of at least 3 of them, all sitting quietly. No problems here for the Canon autofocus system. Very sharp, snappy and so precise. I hardly have to do anything, just the dreaded overheating warning to worry about. For most of the trip I was using my custom FV shooting mode, with back button focusing enabled. Here I've stopped down to f4 and set the shutter speed to 0.05 of a second to compensate for the 400mm focal length. The ISO is set to auto. The light is dimming quite quickly, but I'm getting really good results between ISO 1000 and ISO 1600. However, I decide to make a few adjustments to the autofocus, moving from case 3 back to case 1. For this particular scene, the focusing felt even snappier for slower moving subjects. This 400mm prime lens is very sharp at f4. I'm getting some really nice shots even with the long grass in the way. The shallow depth of field of this focal length is blurring out any foreground elements. We decide to move away from the cubs and return to the 2 mating lions. With any luck, we'll get to see a bit of action. The sunset makes for great photo opportunities. Even at f5.6, I'm still only at ISO 2000. Understandably, the lions have attracted a lot of attention. We just have to wait patiently for our chance. Suddenly the male stands up, but I can't get a clear shot. The autofocus has no idea what to do. I'll need to switch a single point focus, but with the back button still enabled. The lion is facing away from us, and there's not much we can do with so many vehicles in the way. I'll have to settle for the shot of the lions behind. It's a tricky scene. The light's fading fast and there's a lot of people waiting for their chance. Suddenly the female gets up and the male follows. Could this be the moment? Unfortunately, still no action, but at least now I have a clear view of the lioness. I changed the tracking mode from case 1 to case 2 and crop in on the sensor using the 1.6 times mode. I changed back from 1.AF to tracking to see if I can lock onto the eye of the subject. Case 2 didn't feel very accurate, so I changed again and used case 3. A bit of recomposing and finally the autofocus snaps onto the eye. I'm still getting a 17 megapixel image, but we can't get any closer at this moment. I managed to get some really nice shots of the lioness, wide open at f2.8. I didn't get the shots I was hoping for, but still, what an amazing moment. As we slowly back away from the lions, the light around us starts to drop even further, and then, only a few hundred yards away, there was an even more amazing moment awaiting us. The rest of the lion pride suddenly appeared right next to our vehicle. The lioness was trying to encourage her cubs to walk past us, but they seemed more interested with playing with her tail. I was kind of pleased the lioness was on the opposite side, as there were no doors on the vehicle. I guess my driver was kind of used to seeing lions in the wild this close. After they all passed by the vehicle, we were treated to an amazing display as the cubs enjoyed their evening playtime. All we had to do was sit and watch. checked back to find the 2 mating lions, but they were still resting. It was getting late, so it was time to move on. Along the way back, we found a group of hyenas under flashlight, not far from the pride. Another unexpected moment. After an exhausting but incredible day, we headed back to the lodge for a long rest before another morning game drive the next day. It's 5:30 in the morning, getting ready for a 6 AM game drive out in South Luangwa, and that is not a bad way to start the day, is it? An incredible sunrise over South Luangwa National Park. Anyway, we need to get moving, get to breakfast, and then get ready for the drive. As we made our way out of the lodge, we made the most of the morning sunrise. It was looking like another glorious day as we drove through the entrance. It's not even 7 AM and we're already inside the park. Not long into the game drive, we find a herd of impalas walking along the road. A great opportunity to set the camera up and to make some adjustments to the autofocus. The impalas just look amazing in the morning light. Most antelopes tend to run away at the sight of a vehicle, but these seem relatively calm around us. After a few test shots, I was ready to adjust the autofocus. I was initially in case 3 from the previous day, so changed up to case 4, expecting the impalas to suddenly run off. But they just carried on walking along the road. They didn't seem to mind us at all. The park at this time of the year is very green. The rainy season has just ended and it's full of life, but game can be difficult to spot at times. Despite the conditions, it wasn't long before we came across a herd of zebra by the side of the road. The stripes of the zebra is making it really difficult for the eye detection autofocus to work effectively. I'll need to change the settings again from case 4 down to case 2 to see if that works better. It hasn't really helped that much, so I switched the AF on button back to 1.AF. Then I crop in using the 1.6 times mode. I would probably end up cropping into the photo anyway, so why not just do it in camera? I have a lot more control with the 1.AF, but I need to be more precise, so I change it again to spot AF instead. For me, this works much better when using the 1.6 times crop mode. Later that morning, we stumble across a small family of elephants. Sometimes this can be quite dangerous because the adults tend to be very protective of their young. However, the drivers and guides here are very experienced and they can read their body language very well. These elephants seem to be quite relaxed with no sign of aggression. So with the engine off, we just sit and wait and allow the elephants to walk past us. With the animals so close, I'm limited to what I can do with a 400mm prime lens. I'm getting some nice close-ups with an amazing amount of detail when stopping down to f4. Even at ISO 4000, these shots look great. My subjects are simply too close for the 400mm, so I switched to the 70-200 f2.8 on the R6. I find this is the perfect lens to accompany the 400mm prime. However, I'm not getting the same level of compression and depth of field compared to the 400mm. Even at f2.8 or f4, there's something so incredible about the depth of focus on the 400mm lens. Not even a 70-200 f2.8 can even come close. The image out of the R6 is just as good as the R5, but the 400mm is where the magic is, despite the lack of focal range. I therefore decide to switch back and continue to take some nice close-ups, while the elephants just roam peacefully around me. The great thing about this vehicle is the way I'm able to work much lower down at almost eye level with the animals. This is really the key to taking better photographs while on safari. Eventually they all disappear into the bush. We then continue our game drive and find even more impalas running across the road, and despite the dense bushland we find even more elephants. Unfortunately, I was unable to get a clear view on this occasion. We then made our way back to the lodge for an afternoon break. Then we're back into the park for an evening drive. It wasn't long before we found a huge herd of elephants grazing in the open grassland, and at the perfect focal distance for the 400mm prime. Although the images look good, it's another difficult subject for the R5's eye detection autofocus. It's just not quite latching onto the eye of the elephant, so I decided to make some changes. I was in case 3 for the servo AF, but moved to case 1 and then changed the tracking sensitivity to +1 to make it more responsive. It's still producing a nice image, but I didn't really feel like the eye detection was really working. Maybe the tracking sensitivity should be more locked on than responsive. I quickly checked that the subject detection was set to animals and then changed the servo AF mode to auto. The images look good, but the eye auto detect is still not really working that well. So I switched the AF on button from tracking to 1-point AF and manually control the focus area. Much better results. Towards the end of the evening, we came across a huge lone male elephant. He was too close for the 400mm, so I switched again to the 70-200. This lens produces some nice results, but at f4 there just isn't the same depth of field effect as the 400mm. I then switched back to the 400 for those extreme close-ups. I'm really enjoying those shots. The level of detail, even at ISO 12800, is simply amazing. It's a big heavy lens and it can be a struggle to carry around at times, but I think the results kind of speak for themselves. We still had time to venture further across the park for a sundowner near the Luangwa River before heading back to the lodge under flashlight. Another great day in South Luangwa National Park. Just here at the lodge, and there's a massive hippo between me and the restaurant. That's not a good place to have a hippo, I've got to be honest. So the guy's chasing the hippo away, and then I can make my way to the restaurant. Look at that. Wow. Good work, man. Good work.
Yeah.
You've done this before. So heading out again, another morning drive. This is a day 3 officially, a second full day in fact. Another absolutely glorious morning. Amazing sunrise here, South Luangwa. So yesterday we saw a lot of elephants. The day before we saw a lot of lions, so hopefully we get to see the lions again. Hopefully maybe a leopard. Not seen the leopard yet, and that's what this park is supposedly quite famous for, is that it's high population of leopards, so hopefully we get to see that. But definitely I think we'll see more lions today, because they seem to be quite close to this area at the moment. Anyway, I have to see, I have to wait and see. Last night there was actually a hippo roaming around within the camp, within the lodge site behind me. So I had to wait for one of the guards to kind of move it out of the way. It's quite funny. You can actually hear the hippos in the river right next to me here. Our chariot awaits for this morning's game drive. The perfect safari vehicle. And our main man Vic, the dream driver. This is just the entrance to the main park, the actual national park. So this is South Luangwa, you can see behind me. So this is like the checkpoint, or like the administration office, where we have to pay for the park fees and all that sort of stuff. So just waiting for the driver to sort that out, and then we're going to head in for a morning drive. Should be fun. Vic is brushing up on his knowledge of birds here. That's our little setup for today. Pretty amazing. There's another vehicle ready to go in. There's some baboons greeting us for a quick morning shag. Go on, lad. As we headed back into the park, there was word that the pride of lions we saw on the first day were still close by and had even taken down a zebra overnight. We therefore raced over to try and find them, to see how much of this poor zebra had been devoured. There's a lot of hungry mouths to feed in that pride. The R5's eye detection AF didn't disappoint here, almost instantly locking on to the subject. Knowing that I have a reliable autofocus, I'm able to concentrate on things like composition and exposure settings. I do, however, make some quick changes to the servo AF settings, moving from auto mode to case 1, as this works so well with the lion cubs on the first day, but leaving the tracking sensitivity to locked on -1. I'm able to capture so much of the action with both the R5 with the 400mm and the R6 with the 70 to 200mm. The eye detection on both cameras for photos and video is a joy to work with. We then take a short drive to the other side of the den to find a huge male and the protector of the pride. He has a big scar on the left side of his face, so he's definitely seen a bit of action in his time. I've switched from tracking to 1-point AF for this shot, with the back button focus still enabled. This allows me to compose a shot, lock the focus, and then recompose the scene without having to worry about the plane of focus. Just one of the benefits of back button focusing. The big male lion starts walking towards us. He's a terrifying sight, but doesn't seem too interested in us. By the look of it, he's probably eaten half of that poor zebra. As he sits facing us, I switch back to the tracking mode with the eye detection on. The focus is almost flawless. All I have to do is press a trigger. The results are amazing when the lens is stopped down to f4. We follow the male lion for a bit longer as he takes shelter from the hot sun under the trees. With the same autofocus and exposure settings, all I have to do is compose the shot and press the shutter button. This vehicle is so great. Without the windscreen, it's allowing me to be almost eye level with the lion. This will make a huge difference to the quality of your work. He really is a magnificent looking lion. Pretty eventful morning here. Managed to track down the lions, and they had taken down a zebra, so they're all kind of feeding, which was really amazing to see. We tried to find them last night, but we couldn't find them. But this morning, I think maybe because we had much better light, we were able to track them down. We're just here having a little break. We're inside the national park. We found a quiet area, and we'll be on our way back to see the lions again. Brown snake eagle. Fantastic. Just back at the lodge here in South Luangwa. Just going for a quick lunch, then we're going to be heading back out for a afternoon, evening game drive back in the main park. So hopefully we'll get to see the lions again, and hopefully the elusive leopard. Who knows? We'll have to wait and see. This vehicle has been modified with photographers in mind. So by positioning myself in the front seat without the windscreen in the way, helps me create much better photos. I'm also getting some really amazing footage with the Insta360 camera. After a few hours exploring new areas of the park, we decided to return to see the lions. It was a race against time to get there before sunset. We finally find them not far from where they were feeding earlier, along with another group beside us. It was another really tricky scene. The big male is lying down facing away from us, and it's also extremely dark. There are two cubs lying near the male, but they seem really disturbed by the loud tourists beside me. They soon decide to move on into the bush. The group next to me are making a lot of noise. They've brought their young children along, and they are causing big problems. Soon enough, all the cubs have disappeared. The male, however, didn't seem to be too bothered. I think my driver had a polite word and they soon moved off. After a few moments, some of the cubs started to reappear from their hiding place. With the sun now set for the evening, we had to rely on the car's headlights and also the flashlight. The Lion Pride then proceeded to perform another amazing show right in front of us. Proved another test for the low light autofocus settings on the Canon R5 and also the ISO performance. Our guy with the flashlight is doing a brilliant job. In a way, he's kind of directing me. Wherever he shone the light, my camera followed. This is also extreme low light conditions, even with the flashlight. I'm working wide open at f2.8 and mostly between 6400 and 12800 ISO because I need a reasonable shutter speed. I'm reluctant to go below 1/200th of a second, but I know I'm going to need to go lower at some point. I'm maxed out, but the Canon R5 performs remarkably well. Eventually, the entire pride of lions are all out together, almost lying beneath our vehicle. Unfortunately, it's time to return to the lodge for a long rest before my final day in South Luangwa. Another amazing morning, South Luangwa National Park. Toyota Land Cruiser. Nothing can stop it. Let's see what this thing can do for us today. Okay, so just waiting for our driver, Vic, to turn up. We'll be on our way back into the national park for a full day game drive. That means we can get to areas that are much further away. So the idea is that we've got a better chance of seeing some of the animals that we've not seen yet. Fingers crossed today is the day that we get to see one of the leopards in South Luangwa. It's my final day in South Luangwa. We drive deeper into the national park to areas I've not seen yet. We find a big group of giraffes roaming across the savannah. The 45 megapixels of the R5 is allowing me to crop into areas I would normally miss. The midday light and ISO performance is allowing me extreme shutter speeds to capture fast birds up close, such as this bee-eater. We also find another huge group of elephants. I'm trying hard to get a clear shot, but bushland and thickets are making it very difficult. I'm hoping for something really spectacular for my last day, but it's almost midday and it's very hot. Around this time, most of the big cats are hiding in the shade. We decide to let the elephants go and concentrate on the herd of buffalo instead. The herd seem to be aware of us, but they stand their ground, with perfect focal distance for my big prime lens. I've never noticed so many colours on a buffalo before. The amount of detail the R5 and the RF400mm are capturing is amazing. We race back to find the elephants again. Hopefully they have moved to a clearer area. But we need to be careful as there are several baby elephants amongst the group and mothers can be very protective. The midday light isn't ideal, but I'm enjoying those close-ups. I'm getting some really good shots while the elephants are shaded amongst the trees, illuminated by only a few streaks of light. We're being shouted at by the large elephants, so we're best to move on. In the distance, we find a small group of kudu foraging within the thickets, an animal that we hadn't actually seen as yet, and can actually be quite elusive. Such amazing looking creatures. Done so well, this car. We thought nothing could stop it. Just a quick stop to change one of the tyres. We had a bit of a blowout, so we just need to change a tyre quickly. We are deep inside South Luangwa National Park. There's a few zebra behind me, and some impalas kicking around. Nothing too serious. Stop here, time for a spot of lunch up in the hills. Towards the end of a fairly uneventful full-day game drive, we decide to see if we can find the lion pride again. To our relief, we find them in the same area as the previous day. We can even smell the rotting remains of the zebra that they had killed. We even notice a group of impala keeping their distance. It's now a little later in the day and the pride seem to be more active. The lion cubs follow their mums everywhere, which is really amazing to watch. The lions instinctively know what to do as they spring into action. Despite recently making a kill, the lioness seemed like she was ready to start another hunt. She's found prey to stalk and begins to make her move. What an amazing moment as she just strolls past our vehicle. The R5 autofocus is almost flawless. As the first lioness moves off out of sight into the bush, another lioness appears right behind her. They're gearing up for a hunt. The lioness keeps a close eye on her sister, ready to make her next move. Meanwhile, the cubs are hidden away in the thickets. Unfortunately, I can't get a clear shot with the long grass in the way, but they need to learn to be quiet while their mothers are hunting to avoid attracting any unwanted attention. They learn to hunt by watching the adult lions. As we leave the lion cubs, we find the huge male we saw yesterday. His role, while the lionesses are hunting, is to protect the pride from other predators. He has a huge scar in his face. He was most likely fending off hyenas or other lions, trying to move into his territory. With the light fading fast, I've stopped down to f2.8, something I was only really prepared to do for extreme low light situations. Even at 1/500th of a second, the ISO is set to auto mode and is bouncing between 2500 and 5000 ISO. For these last few bursts of action, I'm just allowing the autofocus to do its thing. It's not perfect, but while in burst mode, I'm able to get the shot. With the light almost gone, I move the shutter speed down to 1/200th of a second. This brings the ISO back down to 2500. As we move away, we then notice the collared lioness right next to our vehicle. Hopefully, she's finally managed to get some rest away from all of her cubs. And this proved to be the final photograph of my 4 days in Zambia. So heading to the reception area at the track and trail, just checking out, paying the bill and heading off to the airport. Pretty amazing little place actually, South Luangwa, absolutely teeming with wildlife. It is very seasonal though. There's certain times of the year where you're going to get more sightings of leopards, wild dogs for example. So we saw the lion pride, that was pretty amazing, but unfortunately we didn't see any leopards, and there were sightings of wild dogs, but unfortunately we couldn't track them down. So still an amazing trip, but we've got a long flight now back to the Middle East and back home. At least I'll get away from these mosquitoes because they are eating me alive. We're at Mafue airport, just getting on the pro flight Zambia, fly back to Lusaka, ready for my connecting flight back to the Middle East. Yeah, what a great trip.